And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single-family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Welcome to the show. My name is Al Gordon, and as always, I'm working on your financial freedom. And I will tell you this, I am sitting back, I am happy. I've got a big bag of cash that hit my bank account over the weekend. What makes Al a happy camper is the fact that he finally executed his strategy to sell off his final single-family piece of real estate, and we got it done. Well, we attracted people with the new price point, but we still weren't getting any offers, no offers at all. So what did we do? We adjusted our price again. Now, all of this that I'm telling you about, all of this occurred over a period of several months. It occurred over a period of several months. So what did I finally get the price point to on this asset? The price point where the asset finally sold was at $215,000. $215,000. Now, some of you are saying, wow, that's a big haircut, dude. That's a $30,000 haircut off of the price that you were trying to get for that asset. And I'm here to tell you, yeah, it was basically a $30,000 haircut. All right, let me let you in on the insider information on the appraisal. We finally found a buyer. I've told you about this on previous shows. We found a buyer. The buyer executed a contract with us. We did the things associated with the contract. We had to fix a few things. I had a termite problem I had to remedy. Got the termite problem all taken care of. The lender wanted a letter from the foundation company that basically said any cracks in the foundation are cosmetic. They're not indicative of any problems with the foundation. So we got that letter. The lender was satisfied, and we closed. We had an appraisal done on the property. The appraisal came in at $215,000. $215,000. So what am I getting at? Why am I telling you what sounds like a bad news story? Because at the end of the day, the property traded for the price that the market found acceptable to the asset, and it was based on what the buyer and seller agreed upon and what a disinterested third party in the form of an appraisal came in and said it's worth $215,000. So let me get back to those of you that are concerned that I lost $30,000. I didn't really lose $30,000 because I was trying to get a certain price point on this asset, but I couldn't get that price point. The market wouldn't bear that price point, so I had to reduce my price point. Now, along the way, what's been happening is the market has been softening. The single-family market, at least the market where this particular asset's at, which is in the greater San Antonio market, the market is softening for price. In other words, because of what the interest rates have done, people are finding it more difficult to buy properties. Now, I sold this asset to another investor. I sold this asset to an investor that doesn't invest the way I do. This investor buys properties at full retail value. That's what this investor did. That investor comes in with about 10% down. They've got a lender that's willing to do a 90% loan. That's how the investor wants to buy the property. I think that's an ineffective way to do it, but at the end of the day, it was an effective way for me to get out of the property that I had owned for a very long period of time. And here's what I need to tell you. Here's the part you don't understand, because I know some of you are still stuck on that. You took a $30,000 haircut, dude. I mean, you left $30,000 on the table. Now, let me take you back 25 years where the roots of this asset began, shall I? 25 years ago, I was serving in the United States Army. I was working on earning a pension. I had not earned a pension. The United States Army only offered a pension back then, and you had to serve for 20 years in the United States Army in order to earn that pension. Well, 25 years ago, I was probably about halfway to earning that pension, so there was no guarantee that I was going to earn that pension. And in addition to that, there was no such thing as a 401k in the military. Now, today, the military has replaced the pension with something called the Thrift Savings Plan, the TSP, which is the military's version of a 401k. And the reason the military's done that is because they have figured out, like corporate America, it's a lot cheaper to move the retirement burden onto your employees than to maintain it yourself. But let me get back to what was going on 25 years ago. 25 years ago, Tina and I decided to buy our very first piece of investment rental property. And what had happened was I was in a place called Leavenworth, Kansas, and I was attending a course. It was about a 6-week course, and it was an important course for my military career. I had to be there. I had to spend the time in Leavenworth, Kansas. But when my fellow officers were drinking beer and playing volleyball in their off time, because that's kind of what you did at this course. You drank beer and you played volleyball. I got the bug, and I decided I was going to go out and I was going to buy myself a piece of real estate. So I did. I bought this piece of real estate. It was a duplex, and I paid full retail value for that duplex. And I owned and operated that duplex for many, many years, and I owned it incorrectly. Now, what do I mean by owning it incorrectly? Well, first of all, I paid full retail value for the property. As a Lifestyles Unlimited member, I know that paying full retail price for an asset isn't the most effective use of your money. But 25 years ago, I was not a Lifestyles Unlimited member. I had never heard of Lifestyles Unlimited, and I was doing things in accordance with what other people had taught me to do. See, I was under the understanding that all I had to do was buy the asset, hold the asset, and the asset would go up in value over time. And as long as I held that asset and fed that asset, even if that asset had negative cash flow, which that asset did, I paid every month into that asset to keep that property going. I was hoping that that asset was going to go up in value over time. And eventually it did. Eventually it did. A couple of years ago, after becoming members of Lifestyles Unlimited, Tina and I looked at some of the investments that we had made in real estate prior to becoming Lifestyles Unlimited members. And we realized that we had bought these assets incorrectly. We also realized that we were operating these assets incorrectly. So Lifestyles Unlimited taught us how to correct these assets. We turned these assets around. We turned them into assets that produced cash flow as opposed to assets that did not produce cash flow. Pretty cool stuff, right? We literally went from paying $1,000 a month out of our pocket to receiving $1,000 a month into our pocket by doing the things that Lifestyles Unlimited taught us to do. But let me go back to that very first asset that we bought 25 years ago. A couple of years ago, we decided to sell the asset. The asset had gone up in value enough that we felt we could harvest the gains from the property. We would actually get some type of return on investment after owning this asset for 20 some odd years. But here was the problem with the asset. We had owned that asset for such a long period of time, and we had taken so much depreciation on that asset that even if we had sold the asset and doubled our money on the asset, we were going to get creamed on the taxes. Yeah, we were going to get destroyed on the taxes because we were going to pay taxes at whatever the capital gains rates were at the time, and we would be subject to long-term capital gains rates. But we'd also be subject to depreciation recapture. And because we had owned that property for well over 20 years and taken a lot of depreciation on the asset, we were concerned that most of our proceeds from the sale would go to taxes. So how do you avoid that? How do you get around that? Well, you do something called a 1031 exchange. And that's what Tina and I executed. We executed a 1031 exchange. So what we did was we sold that duplex in Leavenworth, Kansas. We took all the money out of it, but we never touched the money. The money went to a third-party accommodator who held the money in trust for us while we looked for a replacement property. So we looked for a replacement property, and we decided that where we wanted to be was in the greater San Antonio market. We wanted our replacement property to be within about a 1-hour drive of where we live, just in case we had to go there. Now, the property that was in Leavenworth, Kansas, that was like a 9-hour drive. Okay, so we never went there. But at the end of the day, we just felt it would be kind of nice to have the property a little bit closer to us. Plus, we determined that the San Antonio market at that time was a really incredible market with a lot of growth, a lot of rent increase. There were a lot of positive things going on in the single-family market in San Antonio that we wanted to be a part of. We felt the San Antonio market was a more attractive market to be in than the Leavenworth market that we were exiting. So we did a 1031 exchange into a replacement property, and it happened to be this house that we just recently sold. Now, we took over this house, and we had a tenant in place. And that tenant lived there for a while, and she did pretty good until she became a slow payer. Once she became a slow payer, now what's a slow payer? A slow payer is somebody that does not pay you the entire rent at the beginning of the month. Maybe it now takes them till the 5th of the month to give you the full rent. Or maybe now it takes until the 8th of the month, or the 10th of the month, or the 12th of the month. See where I'm going? Or they show up and they go, look, I know the rent is $1,500, but here's $500 and I'll get you $500 in 2 more days, and I'll get you $500 in 3 days after that. That is a slow payer. That's what this resident turned into. And I don't know what was going on in her life that caused that, but it happened. So Tina and I made the decision that she had to go. She was in violation of her lease. She was actually on a month-to-month lease. So we basically said, it is time for you to go. So we had her move out of the property. She moved out of the property. We went in and inspected the property, and we made sure that everything was good to go. There were some things that needed to be done on this property that had not been done prior to us owning the property. And here's why. Because we were doing a 1031 exchange, it was very difficult to 1031 exchange into a lifestyles type property. So I unfortunately had to buy a property at essentially retail value. But what I didn't do was pay full retail price. What I did was I came into the property and I still earned about $30,000 worth of equity because I bought the property correctly, even though I didn't do it the lifestyles way, because I was coming out of a 1031 exchange. When we come back from the break, more on this information. Stick around.
Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show returns in a moment. Got questions? Go to lifestylesunlimited.com.
Tired of living the life of quiet desperation? Want to retire but can't save fast enough? Let Del Walmsley and the team at Lifestyles Unlimited show you how.
I'm here to tell you, you got to take action now. You got 1 year, and at the end of 1 year, it's going to be just as crazy as it was.
Change your roadmap. Change your life.
So unlike when you go to retire and you think you have a pile of money and you're going to live off that pile of money, and your goal becomes die before you run out of money, right?
Use real estate to create passive income.
Our goal here is just go out there and create the income stream. We don't care how big the pile is. That's irrelevant to us. Create the income stream we can live on, and then every year continue to build that wealth.
Build wealth.
You should be able to increase your income every year for the rest of your life. I have since I was 34 years old.
Get educated now at Lifestyles Unlimited. Text the word radio to 88007. That's radio to 88007. Join for $297, a 60% savings off the regular price. Text radio to 88007.
Creating the lifestyle you've always wanted. You're hearing Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Welcome back to the second half of the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. My name is Al Gordon, and as always, I'm working on your financial freedom. I'm doing so today because I'm sharing a transaction that I just completed, and I'm actually sharing a 25-year history on this transaction so that you can understand that, first of all, real estate is a long-term asset to hold, and second of all, there are good ways to own real estate, and there are bad ways to own real estate. And in my example that I've given you so far on the show, I have illustrated the good and the bad ways of owning real estate. Now, as we went to break, I was telling you that there was a duplex in a place called Leavenworth, Kansas that Tina and I bought 25 years ago. That was our first investment property that we bought together, and we bought the property because we knew that we needed to do something in addition to the pension that I was working on with the United States Army, because we wanted to get to a place of retirement when it was time for me to leave the United States Army. Fast forward to 2014, the Army decided on my part it was time for me to go, and I was retired. Now, I earned that pension. That pension comes in, but that pension only pays 1/3 of what I used to make when I was serving on active duty. But we had bought this duplex, and we had bought 2 other duplexes to go with it about 25 years ago, and we were kind of looking at these duplexes as something that would help us in retirement. What we found when we essentially retired from the United States Army was those duplexes really didn't help us much because they were running negative cash flow. We weren't operating them correctly. We were not operating them the Lifestyles Unlimited way because we weren't even members of Lifestyles Unlimited. Heck, we hadn't even heard of Lifestyles Unlimited back when I left the United States Army. It wasn't until 2017 when I heard the message from Lifestyles Unlimited that there's a better way to retirement. And in 2017, I was already working for another organization, and I was miserable. And I had tasted retirement, and I wanted it back. I totally wanted it back. So let me get back into the story about these duplexes, and let me explain to you why I bought a single-family property, but I didn't necessarily buy it the Lifestyles way. I came as close as I could. So let me explain myself. We sold a duplex after owning it in Leavenworth, Kansas for, I don't know, I'm going to say it was like 22 years, something like that. And then we did a 1031 exchange into a single family property. Now, the property that we bought it from another investor. And this other investor was a Lifestyles Unlimited member. This other investor had just bought the property on a hard money deal. But what they had done, unfortunately for them, was they had got a little bit too fast with the acquisitions. In other words, what they had done is they had gone out and they had bought more properties than they had the ability to renovate at any given time. So they're putting properties onto their books, if you will, but they don't have the time to work on these properties. So what happened was, in the case of this very particular property, this guy was a little bit overextended. And what his lenders wanted him to do was to dispose of one of his properties so that he could get back into balance. All right. So he made this particular property available to me essentially for the price that he paid at the wholesale price. Does that make sense? So in other words, he effectively sold me the property for the same amount that he bought it for, and I got into what would be a hard money deal, but I got in with conventional financing. Now, I did not fix up the property when I took it over, and here's why. When I took the property over, there was already a lease in place, and I did not want to mess with the resident because the resident was actually paying a pretty decent rental rate for the area, even though the house still needed to have some work on it, okay? So what we did was we set money aside to budget for the repairs. We let the resident live there for the time of their lease, and when their lease ran out, we let them go on a month-to-month. And eventually they got to a place where they became slow payers, and we told them they had to go. They left the property, and at that point, we did the renovations on the property because it was our intent to sell the property. Does that make sense? Now, we had the available cash in order to pay for the renovations. So what renovations did we have to do? Well, foundation was bad. I had to get a foundation guy in there. I spent about $12,000 on foundation, okay? Foundation is primo. It's primo. But in the process of repairing the foundation, some of the cast iron sewer pipes underneath the property had some ruptures and breaks in it. And when my plumber went in to inspect the whole thing, he said, dude, it's toast. That whole sewer system under the house, bad. We need to tunnel. Tunneling can be expensive. He gave me a really good price. I'm not going to give you the price that he gave me because at the end of the day, I don't think you could get the price that I got. I just don't think you could get it in today's market. But I got that price because I have a relationship with that plumber. That's not the first tunneling job that I have done with that plumber. So as a result of that, that plumber gave me a break on the price. And I appreciated it. The other things I had to do, there was some minor electrical stuff that needed to be done. The hot water heater needed to be replaced. The air conditioning system needed to be replaced. There was some roofing matters that needed to be addressed. Not a full roof, mind you, just some very minor little repairs that needed to be done. And at the end of the day, the house was in pristine order to sell. But here's the problem. We put the property on the market right when the market was converting to what I would consider a hardcore buyer's market. And even though we priced the property appropriately at $245 when we initially put the property on the market, and that was based on sold comps, the market softened on us. The market softened on us, and we eventually sold the property for $215,000. Now, I know I'm going back to it. Some of you are concerned that I took a $30,000 haircut. Well, that $30,000 was never really there to begin with because the market didn't allow that $30,000 to be there. But at the end of the day, when we sold the property, I still doubled my money. When we bought the property, the accommodator, the people that were doing the 1031 exchange for us, funded the property for us. They essentially bought the property for us. We never touched the money. That's all part of the 1031 playbook that you have to live by. So we got control of the property. We controlled the property. We continued to rent the property. We continued to operate the property until the resident acted up and didn't do what they were supposed to do, and we asked the resident to leave. We put the property on the market, but the property was in a buyer's market. And as a result of that, there was downward pressure on the property. But because we had the money that went into the property at the tune of around $30,000, I just cleared $65,000 after all expenses. Part of our strategy has been to terminate our single-family assets and to transition with the money that comes from those single-family assets into multifamily assets. And that's what we're doing. That's exactly what our game plan is. So in October, we put the property on the market. And what we discovered, not necessarily instantaneously, but we discovered that we were in a buyer's market. And we still wound up doubling our money in a buyer's market, even when I had many of my fellow Lifestyles Unlimited members saying, "Hey, Al, you should just take that property off the market. You should put a good resident in that property and just hold that property until the market bounces back." But here's the problem with that advice. It didn't match up with our goals and objectives. Our goals and our objectives are to convert all of our investment assets to multifamily assets. Tina and I made a decision to move away from single family and to move into multifamily. Now, there's nothing wrong with single family. Nothing wrong with it at all. We made a ton of money with single family. But multifamily offers you some additional efficiencies over and above what single family offers you. You get things like economies of scale. You get all of your doors in one location. So in other words, if you owned 100 single family houses, and let's just say the San Antonio market, what are the odds that all 100 houses are going to be in the same neighborhood? Pretty slim and none, right? Those houses are going to be scattered all over the city of San Antonio based on where you found them to buy them and own them and operate them, et cetera, right? But the opportunity to buy everything in one particular neighborhood, very difficult for somebody like you and I to do. So when we buy single-family assets, they tend to be across a geographical area. But when you are buying a multifamily asset and you've got 100 units, they're all in one place. They're all on one parcel of property. Does that make sense? So you have a lot of built-in efficiencies because you have all of your units all in one location. There are a lot of benefits to that, and we want to take advantage of those benefits. The other thing that we want to do is we want to take advantage of something called multifamily forced appreciation. What is that? What is this multifamily forced appreciation? Well, forced appreciation is a situation where I'm talking you. I'm not talking about the markets. I'm talking about you have the ability to increase the value of the asset by increasing the income streams of the property. One of the things that we teach you to do at Lifestyles Unlimited is to increase your income on your multifamily asset by just 10%. If you can increase the income on your asset just by 10%, You will double your cash flow, and you will increase your equity. You'll essentially double your equity in the process. It's pretty cool, right? Pretty cool stuff. So check this out. We're going to do multifamily. So what have I been doing all weekend long? Well, what I have been doing, I've actually been hanging out with Lifestyles Unlimited members. That's pretty much what I've been doing over the weekend. But more importantly, what I've done is I've gotten with several of my teammates who are multifamily realtors, and what they have done for me is they have provided me documentation on some available apartment communities that are out there within the location that I am searching for. And I spent my weekend understanding the financials of these investment properties. Now, here's what I found on these properties that I looked at. Every single one of them is overpriced for my purposes. Every single one of them wants more money than I can afford to pay. So what do? Do I sit on my hands and do nothing? No, I keep analyzing. These are just the first couple of apartment communities that I've had the opportunity to analyze. So I've spent a lot of time on them. I'm understanding them. I'm understanding what the future potentials of the assets are. I'm understanding the underlying financials of the assets. And what I'm finding out is that the one asset that I liked, they're asking $77,000 per unit. When I did my analysis, I determined that the most I could pay in order to make this property make money for me is $60,000 a unit. So there's a big difference between the ask and the offer price on this particular asset. So what am I going to do about this particular asset? Am I going to make an offer and lowball them? No, I'm not. And here's why. I am just getting started on my multifamily investing journey. These are just a couple of the first few properties I've had the opportunity to analyze. I am not knowledgeable enough about all of the different assets that are in the target marketplace that I'm looking at to where I feel comfortable making an offer on the property where I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't know if it's going to work. So if it's not going to work, I have no interest in making an offer. Also, I am in the educational phase of my Lifestyles Unlimited multifamily journey. I am learning about different assets that are available to me in the marketplace that I've chosen to invest in. It is important for me to understand the mechanics of these assets. It's kind of like if you're into cars, right? If you're into cars, you know all about the Chevys, right? You know all about the Fords, right? You know all about the Toyotas, right? Well, that's kind of what I'm doing when it comes to the multifamily apartment community business. I'm getting to know the El Nortes. I'm getting to know the Landmarks. I'm getting to know pick your favorite name of any apartment community, and that's what I'm doing. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm getting under the hood. I'm getting to know these different assets, and I'm getting to understand who the movers and shakers are in the markets. In addition to that, I am looking for the asset that is truly struggling. I am looking for the asset that I could take over and I could make a great windfall. And I'm not just talking about doubling my money in about a 2-year time period like I did with the single family. I'm talking about making even more money than that. I'm talking about doubling, tripling, quadrupling my money. I'm talking about increasing my cash flows. I'm talking about finding the exact right asset that I need to put into my portfolio so that I can make money 6 different ways. Because there are 6 different ways we make money in real estate when it comes to the multifamily space. There's the cash flow, there's the equity capture, there's the natural appreciation, there's the principal pay down, there's all the tax advantages, and then, of course, there's multifamily forced appreciation. If you want to do what I'm doing, you want to do what the 50,000 members of Lifestyles Unlimited are doing, go to lifestylesunlimited.com, sign up for a free workshop, and let's get you going.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.